Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are bringing some serious energy to a topic that literally touches every single one of us. We're going to dive deep into the hidden neuroscience behind our everyday emotional reactions. We're talking about the science of small things and exactly why the tiny details absolutely matter in our relationships.
So tell me if this sounds familiar. Have you ever waited anxiously for a text back from someone, even though rationally you know they're completely swamped at work? Or, I don't know, maybe you felt deeply, genuinely hurt when someone forgot your birthday, even after you told yourself and everyone else that it wasn't a big deal. I want to break the fourth wall here for a second. If you're nodding along right now, your feelings are incredibly valid. We kind of have a habit of gaslighting ourselves into thinking we shouldn't care about these minor details, right? But those vulnerable experiences, they are real. And today, we're going to prove with cold, hard science that these small things are never actually small. Okay, let's dive into this and look at your brain, because this is where everything begins. Section 1. The science of small things. Dopamine, the amygdala, and memory formation. Let's start with the amygdala. You can think of this little almond-shaped structure as your brain's ultimate emotional alarm system. It's incredibly ancient. I mean, this is the primal part of your brain that kept our ancestors alive, which, by the way, is exactly why we can't just logic our way out of our feelings. It is constantly, and I mean relentlessly, scanning your environment for signals of threat or safety. So when someone does a small, unkind act, maybe they use a dismissive tone of voice, your amygdala instantly triggers a mild threat response. But on the flip side, small, kind acts literally signal biological safety. They tell your ancient brain, hey, you're safe with me, which calms your entire nervous system down at a foundational biological level. And that feeling of safety, well, it sets off what happens next, the dopamine reward loop. When someone does something thoughtful for you, your brain releases dopamine, that famous feel-good chemical. This creates a very real sense of biological pleasure. And over time, as someone continues to show up for you in these small, consistent ways, this dopamine release actually compounds. It builds a deeply ingrained neurological pattern of trust. You aren't just deciding to trust them, your brain is physically wiring itself to associate that specific person with joy and security. How wild is that? Which brings us to this incredibly beautiful concept called positivity resonance. This is Dr. Barbara Fredrickson's term, and she found that these tiny shared moments of warmth are literally the building blocks of love. And here's where memory comes into play. Small, emotionally charged moments are stored way more vividly in our memory than huge but neutral events. Your brain prioritizes the feeling over the facts. This is the absolute science behind why people will always remember exactly how you made them feel, even if they completely forget what you actually did or said. Section 2. Decoding the hidden symbols. What small acts secretly communicate to others? Now, what's really interesting about this next concept is how we constantly read these tiny symbols to answer one really deep question. Do I matter to this person? Think of everyday interactions kind of like an iceberg. On the surface, you just have a simple action, right? But underneath, there is a massive psychological meaning. Let's walk through this. When someone remembers your coffee order, it's not actually about the caffeine. The hidden meaning is, I pay attention to you. Checking in when someone is stressed, that translates directly to, you matter to me. But then, on the flip side, forgetting an important date screams, you are not a priority. A genuine compliment means, I truly see you. And being constantly interrupted, that sends the absolute devastating message that your voice does not matter. We are perpetually acting as emotional translators, turning these tiny acts into huge emotional truths about our connections. Section 3. The relationship bank account, the accumulation effect, and Gottman's ratio. So the crucial point here revolves around a specific, mathematically proven ratio. After studying literally thousands of couples in what he famously called the love lab, psychologist John Gottman found something remarkable. Ready for it? 5-to-1. Healthy, lasting relationships maintain this exact ratio of 5 small positive interactions for every single negative interaction. To put that into perspective, think about it like a bank account. Every single small, kind act is a deposit into your emotional account. And every dismissive or careless act, like, say, scrolling on your phone while someone is trying to talk to you, is a withdrawal. It is incredibly rare for one big, dramatic fight to just entirely destroy a strong bond. Instead, relationships usually fail because of thousands of tiny withdrawals that slowly, quietly drain the account totally dry. The daily balance of these seemingly insignificant interactions is what entirely dictates the health and longevity of your connection. Let's move on and see how this builds into our deepest human hunger. Section 4. The deep need to belong. Why we crave being truly known. The legendary psychologist Abraham Maslow placed love and belonging right after our basic physical survival needs. It's literally that essential to the human experience. Small, consistent acts prove that someone is actually paying attention to who you are at your core. Those grand, sweeping romantic gestures, honestly, they can be pretty easily performed just to impress an audience. But remembering the little details, that is incredibly hard to fake. A partner who remembers you hate a certain texture of food often feels far more loving than one who buys an expensive gift but doesn't actually know your heart. Just take a second to let that heavy psychological truth land. It really is profound.
Section 5. Culture and Social Conditioning. Wired to read the singles from childhood.
We don't just suddenly wake up and crave this as adults. From the exact moment we're born, we are actively learning to read tiny social cues, frowns, nods, smiles, to figure out if we belong or if we're being excluded. And because direct verbal expression of deep feelings can actually be quite rare globally, small acts become the universal primary language of love across totally different cultures. For instance, in many Asian cultures, acts of service like quietly cooking a favorite meal or peeling fruit heavily express love. In African traditions, physical presence and community gestures speak absolute volumes without a single word being said. And in Western cultures, sure, verbal affirmation is super common, but those small nonverbal acts still carry enormous emotional weight. We are globally wired to seek out these tiny signals of belonging, no matter where we grew up. Section 6. The contrast effect. Why timing amplifies the meaning of an action. There's another psychological force at play here that makes small things feel huge, and it's called the contrast effect. So receiving 10 kind words on a great day feels wonderful, sure, but receiving a single kind word on a terrible day, that is profoundly moving. Being remembered when you feel completely invisible just hits differently because it proves the act is deeply genuine. The smaller and more unexpected the act is during a dark time, the more certain you can be that they aren't just doing it to look good, they're doing it because they truly, authentically care about your well-being. Section 7. Why small acts matter. The ultimate payoff in our daily lives.
We are arriving at the real emotional core of this explainer now. When we bring all this science together, you see that in every single domain of life, the biology and psychology of these everyday moments fundamentally dictate the health of our connections. Think about it. In romantic relationships, consistent affection easily beats out expensive, sporadic dates. In friendships, simply checking in during hard times builds lifelong loyalty. At work, a manager who takes a single second to genuinely say thank you creates a team that actually wants to show up and give their best. And in parenting, it's not the expensive toys or the lavish trips, it's the eye contact and the quiet daily rituals that make children feel deeply, securely loved. It is never really about the small thing itself. It is about what that small thing proves. When you remember a detail, when you pause to truly listen, you are providing undeniable proof of someone's worth. You are proving that they deserve to take up space in your mind and in your heart. So, I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought to take into the rest of your day. What is one small thing you can do today that proves someone is worth your attention, your memory, and your care? Don't wait for a grand occasion. Use the science we learned today. Send that text, pick up that coffee, and make those deposits. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep making the small things count.